This video is a direct companion piece to my Complete DOOM Bestiary. If you haven't seen that, go watch that before this. Okay, let's go. Just as a quick reminder, zombies come in many different shapes and sizes thanks to the fact that certain aspects of their humanity are retained after their demonization. Generally, they're not much of a threat thanks to their inability to output substantial damage, but in some cases these normally weak demons can acquire additional abilities that make them much deadlier. Blighted zombies are a great example of this. Though the purple aura they emit makes them look very similar to screechers, their danger levels are fortunately not nearly as high. But even so, they're not to be trifled with. When they fall in battle, they don't invigorate their fellow monsters. Instead, they release a shockwave and a caustic substance onto the ground that will very quickly chip away at the life force of any person that comes into contact with it. This effectively weaponizes their general weakness by converting their corrupted forms into a kind of damage-dealing piñata. It's unclear what exactly this murder mist within them is composed of, but based on its hue, it's possible that its origins may be linked to the cosmic realm. Hell absorbs facets of the places and beings it encounters to bolster its strength, a fact that even the bizarre eldritch plane is not immune to. On the complete opposite end of the spectrum is the Hallowed Zombie. Though they look nearly identical to their blighted counterparts, their bodies ooze an entirely different kind of energy. Instead of being bathed in a seemingly acidic bath of aubergine aura, the power source within them appears blue. When slain, it falls from their corpses and almost instantaneously invigorates their killer with rapid health benefits, not unlike that of a soul sphere. Where this energy source originates from is unclear, but regardless, it can be extremely useful when lost in the throes of battle. Its color may suggest that it could be raw essence, the powerful life force that hell extracts from mortal beings. Very little information is known about cosmic lost souls, but given that they've only ever been observed alongside cosmic pain elementals or an entity called Xal Goroth, it appears as though they don't exist naturally or independently, nor do they seem capable of moving of their own volition. As a reminder, the other variants of lost souls had a few different points of origin: intense hell waves, essence wandering the dark dimension, resurrection by the mother demon, or via creation in the guts of a pain elemental. So there's multiple ways these creatures can form, but this doesn't seem to be the case regarding the cosmic variety. Bathed in a strange purple flame, these flying creatures attack in the same way as their brethren, hurling themselves towards prey at frightening speeds to inevitably collide and explode. Normally, this violent display serves to weaken a lost soul's quarry, which helps facilitate easier possession, but it's not exactly clear if that purpose is shared among members of this bizarre subspecies. Their appearance is also a bit different than their cousins, as they possess one cycloptic eye rather than two, a mass of tentacles emanating from their backside, and interestingly, what appears to be a segmented bottom jaw? Skull sentries are an oddity in this bestiary because they don't actually have an official designation. These small floating skulls hover along the battlefield, vomiting out fireballs in 3-round bursts. Each side of their bodies is adorned with an anguish-ridden demonic visage with an overly stretched out mouth. A constant source of hellfire burns within them, but fortunately they don't seem particularly well suited to use it because they die instantly. Perhaps these are a form of lost soul? I really have no idea. Buzzsaws are an interesting footnote in Hell's history because they served as one of the very first examples of hellish engineering and bioweaponry. Originally, each of these creatures was completely unremarkable. To remedy this, they were whisked away to the forges of hell, where their bodies were torn asunder and many of their organs were replaced with mechanical components. On top of this, they were exposed to a mixture of hellfire and essence to bolster their lethality and obedience. In a way, they're the precursors to the Doom Hunter program, but it's unclear if they were manufactured specifically to hunt the Slayer like their progenitors would be. Based on my description, it may sound as though they are without flaw, but this is far from the case. Fortunately for Hell's enemies, each Buzzsaw's neural core needs to constantly be cooled by a series of shabby conduits. During these moments, they glow, painting a very obvious target on an integral part of their design. When damaged, their motor function is massively hindered and they lose synchronization with their weapon systems. This major flaw wasn't something that the High Council knew how to fix, and as a result, any and all Buzzsaw prototypes were stowed away and considered a failure. As the Argentan people and the mighty Slayer marched further into Hell, demonkind grew more and more desperate. This eventually forced a few Hell priests to dust off the Buzzsaw units and allow them to roam the surfaces of the Dark Dimension as much-needed reinforcements. Their form of locomotion is very unique, as they possess no legs or flight capabilities, but rather a singular wheel that allows them to roll across the ground. Clasped tightly in one of their hands is a large shield that appears to be made of dread steel, which means it can eventually be broken after repeated punishment. A small window is at the top of the protective device, allowing each Buzzsaw to better see the environment, but also creating a clear weak spot from incoming fire. The center of their protection can also launch superheated projectiles at anyone who's standing in their way. Their other limb is a long spear that ends in a sharpened point, perfect for jabbing their prey from afar while remaining behind their shield. Aside from poking, it's also capable of slashing and spinning violently like a drill. These demons are extremely fast thanks to their form of locomotion, but once their shields are broken, they're easily defeated. As it turns out, zombies aren't the only species of demon that can be affected by blight. Terrifyingly, on rare occasions, Hell Knights have been observed possessing the exact same kind of power. For the most part, when this happens, their behaviors are unchanged, meaning they're mostly the same brutish and murderous behemoths they've always been. Well, aside from their explosive kamikaze tendencies. When prey is sighted, a blighted Hell Knight will rush towards them with the same kind of ferocity one would expect, but instead of exclusively pummeling their target with their immense fists, they'll begin charging the energy stored within themselves. After a few short moments, a massive explosion will occur, sending a deadly shockwave in all directions that completely destroys the Hell Knight in the process. This can be subverted by staggering the beast during charge-up, or better yet, by eliminating them altogether. Nightmare Revenants are nearly identical to Darkened Revenants, save for the fact that they're partially invisible. If you remember, Nightmare Imp Stalkers were born from Hell's utilization of powers that originate from the cosmic realm. It's never explicitly stated whether or not this also applies to Nightmare Revenants, but I'd wager that the answer is yes. Most of what I said regarding Nightmare Revenants can be applied to Nightmare Whiplashes as well, meaning they're virtually the same as Darkened Whiplashes, but are mostly translucent. That said, they do have an additional and unpleasant habit of leaving an acidic slime trail wherever they slither about. Their attack patterns, their disgusting hairdos, everything else is the same. Man, fuck these things. Warlocks are a member of Hell's ruling class, each given a throne within citadels of their own making. These ancient entities are well known within the Dark Dimension as expert practitioners of demonic sorcery, and are so dedicated to their craft that they submerge their forms in the fires of Hell for hundreds of years at a time, in an attempt to gain a better understanding of its properties. Their primary purpose is to study and analyze any knowledge that may be embedded in the universes or places that Hell has consumed. Within, they often find new forms of magic that they then employ for themselves, further propelling the lethality of Hell's forces ever higher. Arcane information is what empowers them, but in a way it also serves as their undoing, thanks to the fact that it caustically eats away at their physical forms. Warlocks are able to conjure forth all manner of different attacks by utilizing their foul stolen magics. These take the form of a barrage of pinkish blobs, orbs chained to 2 blade-like energy projectiles, and a beam that can be shot into the sky, which then explodes on the ground to create a cloud for inhibiting the vision of its enemies. They're also able to utilize what appears to be hell time to effectively teleport short distances. The staves they carry can be stabbed into the ground to produce small shockwaves, or worse yet, to cast a series of protective empowerment runes on other nearby demons. They also appear to be alive? Anatomically, they're quite strange, as they possess 2 sets of arms and a mass of sharp, short, spider-like legs. They don't use these to move around, though, instead utilizing an unknown ability to remain aloft. The Darkened Arch-vile is by far the deadliest version of the creature that we've seen yet. These hulking behemoths are roughly the same size as their eternal counterparts, but they are far, far deadlier by comparison. Their appearance most closely resembles that of the ancient variant, thanks to their large ovoid craniums. These giant-ass domes aren't swollen for no reason, though. Instead, they serve as a visual indicator of their exceptional intellect. Big brains aren't the only things they have, though. Smack that subscribe button for more demon butt cheeks. They also have massive egos and envision themselves as superior to the rest of demonkind. The thing is, they're not exactly wrong. Their pyrokinetic abilities, as well as the fact that they're capable of summoning spectral versions of Mancubus, Hell Knights, Imps, and Whiplashes, place them at the top of anyone's "need to kill this prick right now" list. These ghostly manifestations are eerily similar to what Devoth is capable of creating, suggesting that perhaps Darkened Arch-viles share a fraction of his power, or at the very least, a similar capability. They're also able to utilize what appears to be a form of hell time to quote-unquote teleport short distances. In actuality, they may instead be creating a distortion in reality to move quickly, effectively slowing time in a manner akin to one of the powers granted by the Heart of Hell. As a defense, Darkened Arch-viles will manifest metallic barriers around their bodies that appear to be made of dread steel. How they're able to essentially spawn physical matter on a whim is unclear, but it once again showcases how dangerous these creatures can be. Once encased in their bubble of protection, they will occasionally propel translucent orange shields composed of some kind of hellish energy as a sort of slow-moving projectile that can inflict serious damage against any who come into contact with it. Their primary means of attack outside of their summons are waves of superheated fire that they can expel from their very fingertips. Occasionally, they will create an entire circular mass of these hell waves that launch away from them in large groups of pure, hate-filled destruction. Thanks to their impressive skill set, lesser creatures often believe them to be elevated by higher demonic forces, a thought process that enrages Arch-viles beyond measure. While they are certainly more powerful, their actual status is unchanged. Their leaders do not grant them with any kind of reward, instead offering empty praise while treating them as expendable muscle. For this, the only thing an Arch-vile hates more than the Doomslayer or a lesser demon is its own masters. This particular variant of the creature hails from an area of the Dark Dimension known as the Domain of Zaruthiel, a dreadful lord and member of the Demonic High Council, but more on them in a little bit. Darkened Arch-viles are an absolute force to be reckoned with, and as such, the only thing scarier than Evil Incarnate is Evil Incarnate with a set of sick-ass armor. Individuals donning protective gear behave mostly the same as those without, save for the fact that their projectiles are far larger and they can summon cyber demons, cosmic barons, and komodos. It's unclear if the armor they wear is what bolsters their abilities or if they're granted the equipment for mastering their sadistic skill set, but whatever the case may be, you do not want to encounter one on the battlefield. As I said before, cosmic elementals are seemingly the only source of cosmic lost souls, but not much is known about the creation of their sentient projectiles. On the surface, it appears to be the same mechanism employed by any other breed of the creature, a horrifically painful digestive system that chews up and spits out the essences of creatures they've absorbed. Think of it like an owl pellet, where an entire animal is consumed, but a little while after the fact, they regurgitate the parts they're unable to digest. With owls, it's bones or hair, but with pain elementals, it's the malformed souls of their victims. Interestingly, they share their appearance with an ancient entity known as Xal Goroth, but more on him a little later. Nightmare imp stalkers, cosmic barons, hybrid cacodemons, these were all created through the symbiosis of hell and the cosmic realm, so one would assume that the same could be said regarding this unusual variant of elemental. Behaviorally, they function very similarly to eternal pain elementals by puking up small groups of lost souls that float beside them and eventually propel towards their attackers. One thing that sets them apart from their cousins is that they can also puke up spectral green cosmic lost souls that can be reflected back, much like other hellish projectiles. They also look related thanks to their 2 arms, singular eye, and segmented mouth. The most bizarre aspect about their appearance is that each quote-unquote mandible is actually an arm that terminates in a misshapen hand. Like any other cosmic creature, they are far more purple than their hellish counterparts, and of course adorned with wriggling tentacles. Their home dimension is exceedingly strange, and as such, it's filled with forces that seem wholly unnatural to us. For example, much like how celestial bodies are pulled together through gravitational waves in the earthly dimensions, sadness and souls are drawn to one another in the same fashion within the cosmic realm. When enough of these components coalesce, a cosmic elemental begins to take shape. Those singular entities, each of their number serves as a sort of colony composed of 1,000 different voices, fueled by the regrets of their former existences and working in harmony to inflict suffering on any they encounter. The Architect, or as he's referred to by his demonic brethren, the Wretch, is Hell's greatest engineer. This entity seemingly helped Devoth create the very foundations of Hell, but unlike his father, he is not evil. Though he is technically a demon, he chose to aid the Slayer when the demonic council cast him into Purgatory, a prison of the Architect's making that he too had been stuck within. Ever intelligent, he intentionally built a flaw into it, a chink in its otherwise impenetrable armor that could be exploited if need be. According to his journals, he appears to be capable of literally thinking structures into existence, or perhaps he is simply able to craft anything he imagines. It's difficult to say with certainty. Despite his obviously great abilities and imposing form, he chose the path of the righteous by crafting the Praetor suit for the mighty Slayer. Affixed to his spider-like torso are 2 gigantic arms, a pair of additional limbs that curve upward, 2 quote-unquote legs that almost appear to be hooved towards his back, and finally a pair of arms in the front, one of which is glowing blue, almost as if it's wraith-powered. His physical form in its entirety reminds me a lot of Stygian vagaries, though it's unclear if they actually share some kind of relation. His eyes glow orange, and though his visage isn't particularly attractive, he's far less frightening than any of his demonic brethren. Very little is known about the High Council, a set of 6 very unique monstrosities that sit atop the highest seats of power within Hell, seemingly only second to Devoth or perhaps archdemons. Zeruthiel, the Old Father, is the Judge of Dawn and seemingly the creator of Arch-viles, or at least the darkened variety. He longs for those beneath him to enter his servitude, and only he can usher in a new age of Hell. His temple is within the halls of torment. Karnoth, the Armorer, is the Judge of Mourning, a warmonger and entity responsible for creating much of the weaponry used by the Dark Dimension. His temple lies within the Sundered Mountain. Garzeth, the Treacherous, is the Judge of Noon. He revels in the art of taking that which is not his own, and he favors those who seek to covet. His temple sits within the Glittering Spire. Iskathra is the Judge of Twilight, and the master of both the most exquisite pleasures and horrific pains. Her temple exists within the Curtained Brothel. Thalrasha, the last queen of Jakad, is the Judge of Evening, and an entity that consumes all joy in favor of sorrow. Her temple can be found in the Sunken Priory. Ozalith, the Old Mother, is the Judge of Midnight. She desires only the emptiness of space and the denial of life. Of all the members of the High Council, it's her favor that is impossible to acquire, as she longs for nothing. It is said that none should search for her temple, as it will eventually discover you. Beyond all of this, nothing else is known about these enigmatic entities. Interestingly, each of them seems to loosely represent one of the 7 deadly sins. Zeruthiel could be pride, Karnoth is wrath, Garzeth would be greed, Iskathra is obviously lust, Thalrasha might be envy, but Ozalith is neither gluttony nor sloth. In fact, she doesn't seem to fit the frameworks of Hell at all. The Infernal Plane is all about desire, to the point of destruction, but the Old Mother seeks nothing. Speaking of Old Mother, what's up with that naming convention? It, as well as the other details describing her, all sound like something from the cosmic realm, rather than Hell. Perhaps she hails from that bizarre dimension instead. It's certainly possible, likely even, but unfortunately there's no way to be sure. Regardless of where these powerful creatures originate, their strength is seemingly unparalleled, and despite the fact that their favor can be obtained, their destruction is all that should be sought. Once a Hell Priest with a fragile form, Belias was a loyal henchman to the demonic council up until his very end. His death came at the hands of the Slayer, an act of righteous violence performed directly in front of those he had served, but instead of letting him truly expire, they empowered him with a plethora of new horrific abilities. He had done all they had asked of him with unflinching resolve, and as such, he was to be rewarded with a new, grotesque physical form. Previously weak, he was now impossibly strong. His legs had grown to tree-trunk-sized masses. The muscles in his arms ballooned, especially those on his left side. Additional limbs, calcium-enriched horns, and most horrifically, eyes and mouths sprouted asymmetrically from his skin. Chief among them was the quivering maw that became of his chest, as well as the toothy tube that appeared from his shoulder and sprouted a metallic tentacle. His now twisted, constantly trembling body was capable of outputting incredible punishment with physical strikes, and wielding an immense magical mace, or staff. This infernal weapon could easily spam projectiles of several shapes and sizes, as well as throw walls of pure hell energy. Arcane magic also enabled him to summon skull sentries through some kind of demonic sigil. He could channel some of this same power into his larger hand, or his metallic tentacle to slap the shit out of anyone who gets too close. Disgustingly, he could also spew acidic vomit from his terrifying chest mouth in a consistent stream, or in ground-coating globules. This vile orifice is also capable of regurgitating an enormous mace that will eventually explode into devastating shrapnel. Unbelievably, he was so powerful that he was initially able to defeat the Slayer, but after a trip through purgatory and the horrors of his past, the doomed Marine returned with renewed vigor and malice, eventually smiting the glorified butler where he stood. Maykr, son of Valen, is a human being and part of the Night Sentinel's militaristic class. He is a well-known warrior that mistakenly made a pact with the Khan that eventually led him to become empowered by her. Though this may sound like a positive outcome, it was far from it. In this new form, he was granted great strength and a whole host of new abilities, but these came at the price of his freedom and seemingly his humanity. Once enthralled, he was no longer in control of his actions and was forced to engage the Slayer in combat within Purgatory. When their battle began, he attacked Doomguy with dual energy blades, each of which was made from a golden power source. These Maykr-infused weapons are obviously capable of slashes or stabs, but they can also be used on the ground in a deadly slam attack that summons forth tentacles made from hard light. He was also able to perform rapid dashes away from his targets, or in some cases, towards them, to deliver particularly devastating melee strikes. His armor seemed to grant him with some kind of power too, so I suppose it's possible that some of these abilities came from it, rather than his weaponry. Through unknown means, he could also conjure forth a barrier of black smoke that behaves much like a solid wall, forcing his current adversary into a small circular arena. The same power used to ignite his weapons can also be used to encase him in a protective bubble, manifest angelic wings, fling superheated projectiles through the air, and send volatile shockwaves across the ground. Like any Sentinel warrior, he can call summoned wolves to aid him in battle, but these ethereal creatures have seemingly been corrupted by Maykr influence. Much like the Gladiator's abilities to create translucent walls around his quarry, Maykr is capable of doing the same, while simultaneously hurling more golden energy forwards. Once heavily damaged, the Khan Maykr helped him further by throwing deadly beams from the sky, as well as smaller bullets via a non-corporeal manifestation. The object forcing Mayk's hand is located in his head, and in a moment of great strength, he was able to resist its siren song. In an impressive showcase of willpower, he was able to essentially become human once more, but only long enough to drive a blade deep into his own skull. Unfortunately, his torturous existence wouldn't truly end there. Long after his death, his soul was used to help resurrect a foul demonic titan, known as the Icon of Sin. As I mentioned in the Maykr entry, golden versions of the summoned wolves previously seen aiding Flynn or marauders are summoned by Maykr in his Maykr-empowered state. It's unclear if these creatures are any different than their red and green ilk, but behaviorally they are identical. When the Cosmic Realm first came into existence, the building blocks of this bizarre dimension came together, eventually forming a conscious entity within nothingness that seemed to cause reality itself to quake. This supreme being's power is entirely unknowable, yet its presence is felt by many. Xal Goroth is seemingly one of the first beings, and as such it has no master, nor does it have a purpose. Its one and only desire is to consume anything and everything until all of creation has been reset. Fascinatingly, ancient elemental wraiths feared this behemoth and were able to lure the beast into a trap within the void outside of reality. Carvings within the primordial city of Osseous depict the frightening visage of this entity alongside human-like skeletons and cosmic barons, in a display that almost looks as though they're worshipping the beast. Thanks to the time-worn nature of Osseous, this implies that Hell has known about Xal Goroth and by extension, the Cosmic Realm, for some time, potentially further implying that all partially invisible demons like nightmare imps or specters were spawned due to its influence. If Xal Goroth was ever awakened or freed from the borders of the known and unknown, universes would simply collapse in on themselves. This godlike presence would somehow utilize a simplistic mathematical equation to mold the discernible into a chaos that would be forever beyond understanding. If it were to cease to exist, the consequences would surely reverberate throughout the multiverse, but what they might look like is entirely uncertain. Appearance-wise, Xal Goroth looks identical to a cosmic elemental, but far larger. Considering the cosmic realm seems as though it may actually be older than the Voth or his creations, it almost appears like pain elementals might have somehow been based on Xal Goroth, thanks to the fact that they share so many similarities to it. Perhaps it somehow exerted its will to cause the creation of regular pain elementals, or maybe they took form in reverence to it. Its influence left a mark on one of the oldest regions of Hell, so it's not outside the realm of possibility. To access this bizarre entity, one must first assemble an ancient artifact called the Astral Key, an object almost certainly created by the race that once imprisoned it. After it's been acquired, a hidden gate buried deep beneath Hell's core in a locked-away place called Purgatory can be opened. Once inside, it attacks in less mind-melting ways that are devastating but knowable. For example, the entity is able to vomit a beam of intense purple energy from its gaping maw that deals staggering amounts of damage. It can also summon forth walls of deadly light and barrages of orbicular projectiles that fling about randomly or in concerted patterns. By slamming its fists into the ground, it can cast a shockwave that emanates outward, potentially killing all in its path. It's capable of manifesting cosmic lost souls that can sometimes be reflected back. Heat-seeking skulls seemingly bathed in eternal flames, flying star-shaped mechanisms that can hurl projectiles, launching meteors from the sky, puking cosmic energy into lingering puddles, opening immense portals to attack with cosmic tentacles, and worse yet, manipulating the environment to create pits that instantaneously kill its attackers. Once significantly damaged, Xal Goroth will encase itself in a near-impervious bubble, and somehow summon forth pillars bathed in an electrifying barrier, as well as monsters from the Dark Dimension. This beast is easily one of the most bizarre entries in this entire bestiary, and feels as though it merges the lore between Doom and Quake even closer together. Shub Niggurath, the Old One, Chthon, Xal Goroth, each gods of the cosmic realm, each sources of unspeakable evil. And though the mighty demon slayer Flynn Taggart seemingly slayed 2 of their number, thought-formed monsters such as these rarely stay dead for long. Okay, now that all major new creatures have been covered, I want to quickly mention the less interesting stuff, or rather beings with very little information, followed by a few things I missed in my first video. In a church with an Osseous is a giant dead winged demon suspended above the pews. Hidden around the same level is a series of small maggot-like creatures that scream and explode when interacted with. Hunting them down and killing them all reveals an absolutely giant version of the same creature, way out in the distance. The Council's Chamber Codex entry makes mention of something called Malgarath the Unyielding. Ravik007 pointed out to me that there are roaches in Doom 3, which implies they somehow made their way to Mars, a detail I find very funny. During Doom 3 on the level comms transfer, there's a bizarre jump scare by a demon that's never seen again. One of the random junk items you can loot off of demon corpses in Doom 2 RPG is simply labeled Demonic Parasites. Whether or not these have any connection to Hellraisers or not is unclear. Sometimes demons in Doom 2 RPG drop crawfish, other times they drop mice, flies, which are apparently in ointment, and rat pelts. There may be more weird animal-related drops other than these that I haven't seen as well. I totally missed the fact that there are demonic winthrons. My notes say that they can breathe fire, but for some reason I can't seem to find any examples of that now. If I'm not crazy and they actually can do that, I have no idea if non-demonic winthrons can as well. The Necropolis 2 Codex entry mentions something called Bukavak. The Codex entry for Osseous implies that the entire region used to be alive at one point. I got the plural versus singular form for Mancubus and Succubus backwards. Mancubi is plural, Mancubus is singular. Succubi is plural, Succubus is singular. Thanks to the Slimy server for the reminder. Also, the Spider Mastermind first appeared in Doom 1993, not Doom 2. This was a simple typo under the first appearance tab of the Spider Mastermind's text information. Thanks to Umbrella Biotech for pointing it out. When I originally published the Complete Doom Bestiary, there were no codex entries for the Arachnotron or Battle Knights in Doom the Dark Ages. There is now. Darkened Arachnotrons are actually blind and use a portion of their brain to generate psionic pulses that help them quote-unquote see. Like any other Hell Knight, Battle Knights are employed in arenas throughout the Dark Dimension. If a warrior is consumed during a hellish conquest, their souls are melded into a Battle Knight, imbuing them with additional strength. I kinda sorta didn't elaborate too much on the subtle enemy ranks and variations in Darkened Demons during my original video either. For the most part, these higher ranks are only subtly different, meaning they're almost certainly not separate subspecies. For example, Battle Knight leaders look the same as Battle Knights aside from the fact that their armor and skin tone are different colors, and that they're stronger. In some cases, these variants come equipped with slightly different attack patterns or weapons as well, but again, it's never hugely different. This also applies to Armored Mancubus, Mortar Mancubus, Mancubus Leaders, Armored Pinky Riders, Pinky Rider Leaders, Armored Arachnotrons, Revenant Leaders, Acolyte Leaders, Cyber Demon Leaders, Agadon Leaders, Agadon Champions, Agadon Brutes, Agadon Brute Leaders, Agadon Brute Champions, Komodo Leaders, Komodo Champions, Vagary Leaders, Vagary Champions, Whiplash Leaders, Armored Arch-viles, Cosmic Baron Leaders, and Warlock Leaders. Huge shout out to Stinky Stan, who supports me at the I Love Woody tier of my YouTube membership program. You rock. Also, thanks to everyone who's made it this far as well. Before you go, I want to tell you about some other videos I'm currently working on. In the not too distant future, I'll be publishing an id Multiverse video that explains how Doom, Quake, and Wolfenstein are connected narratively. So subscribe if you don't want to miss that. I've got some Halo related ideas on the back burner as well, in addition to a Fallout bestiary and a Gears of War bestiary, as well as an every Easter egg video for Doom akin to the one I did for Halo. Okay, that's all I've got. Thanks for sticking around until the end. Oh, also, if you like to talk about video games and stuff, you should go join my Discord. There'll be a link in the description. Okay, that's all I've got. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go play some Doom. Okay, actually, one more thing.